But it wasn't over. It was never over. He would heal in time. Not his eye, of course, but the rest. Then the girl stood over him and drew a brutal wakizashi from her kimono, the short sword's blade so sharp it shimmered as if surrounded by heat. She whirled it round her fingers expertly. And then the ninja knew that it was over. Tell Lord Tokugawa that if he continues to send me assassins, I will continue to send him corpses, she said. Let him set the world against me, and I will kill the world. Tell him that. And tell him, if he wants me to spare his life, he had better send Taro next time, not some weakling of an ordinary ninja. That boy owes me a death. The ninja looked up at her, faint hope in his one working eye. You're allowing me to live? The girl paused. Ah, my mistake. The ninja tried to smile. Then she struck, hard and true, at his heart. I'll just have to tell Tokugawa myself. Yes, this was not a good place to be out at night, all alone. Especially if you were a ninja. Chapter 1. Kanto Province, Lord Oda's Prefecture, 6 months earlier. Taro straightened up, took a deep breath, and pulled back the string of his bow. There was a familiar twinge from his left shoulder, where a thin silver scar traced a semicircle from chest to back, at intervals punctuated by darker circles, suggestive of large tooth marks. This was not surprising. They were tooth marks. Taro ignored the old pain and lined up his arrow with the fleeing rabbit. He held his breath, concentrating on making the bow an extension of his own body. From an early age, he had taught himself to make firing the bow a kind of meditation, believing in his mind that the arrow was already sunk deep in its target, that the only thing required was to loose the string and let it fly. He loosed the string. The arrow arced over brown summer grass and met the rabbit as it jumped over a tussock, driving it to the ground. Taro walked over to the dead rabbit. He knelt and removed the barbed tip, then wiped the arrowhead on the grass before returning the arrow to his quiver. Taro dropped the rabbit into his shoulder bag and turned for home. He wasn't far from Shirahama, the coastal village where he'd grown up. He'd come only as far as the first way marker showing the road to Nagoya. He had kept the sea in view, however, and now, as he rounded the headland, he could see Shirahama Bay, cradled by tall mountains whose flanks were heavily forested with cedar, chestnut, and pine. The simple dwellings of the village nestled on the side of a hill overlooking the sea. The sun was setting, and already a few plumes of smoke rose from houses. It was warm, but there was always fish to smoke and seaweed to dry for its precious salt, so the fires were always burning. The air that Taro breathed as he walked through the trees was scented with pine oil and the salt of the sea. Like most of the other coastal settlements in this part of Japan, Shirahama was entirely dependent on the sea. The men went out on fishing boats, the women were armour divers, and both men and women joined great gatherings of seaweed in the autumn, so that from the slimy, bubbling stuff could be burned salt to sell to the nobles. Taro was not like them. He loved the earth as much as the sea. He had no desire to grow rice like the peasants of the interior, but he liked to hunt using his bow. As he walked, he cradled the arc of smooth wood in his hand. It was slender and fine, but filled with taut, latent energy. His father had made it for him when he was too young even to hold it, but since then he had grown fearsomely accurate with it, and often employed it to supplement the family's food stocks with a rabbit or a fat wood pigeon. The village people didn't like that. Well, except for Hiro.